Breaking tonight, President-elect Donald Trump getting serious blowback from some of his strongest supporters as he backs down on his promise to pursue criminal charges against Hillary Clinton. Good evening and welcome to the Kelly File, everyone. I'm Megyn Kelly. For months on the campaign trail, Mr. Trump attacked his rival for conducting the highly classified business of the United States over a private, unsecured email server, all while she was Secretary of State.
I think Hillary is very weak. I think she's pathetic. I think she should be in jail for what she did with her emails, okay? She should be in jail.
Hillary Clinton should be in jail. You know it. The FBI director knows it. Everybody else knows it. She should be in jail. If I win, I am going to instruct my Attorney General to get a special prosecutor to look into your situation.
It's just awfully good that someone with the temperament of Donald Trump is not in charge of the law in our country.
Because you'd be in jail.
Secretary Clinton. And when Mr. Trump went there, the roaring crowds at his rallies responded. We heard one phrase chanted again and again: lock her up.
She should be locked up. She should.
Then hours ago, Mr. Trump seemed to walk back his pledge to try to put Hillary Clinton behind bars, telling the New York Times that he does not want to, quote, hurt the Clintons and that he prefers to move on. In moments, we'll be joined by Wisconsin Congressman Sean Duffy, who was one of Mr. Trump's earliest supporters. And we'll also speak to author Peter Schweitzer, whose book is credited with sparking the ongoing FBI investigation into the multi-billion-dollar Clinton Foundation. But first, Trace Gallagher is live with the latest on all of this. Hey, Trace.
Megyn, right after the election, Donald Trump was even signaling that he was softening his stance on whether he would push to further investigate his former rival, telling our sister publication, The Wall Street Journal, that he hadn't given it a lot of thought and instead wanted to focus on health care, jobs, immigration, and tax reform. And today, the president-elect confirmed it, telling the New York Times, quote, "My inclination would be, for whatever power I have on the matter, is to say, let's go forward. This has been looked at for so long, ad nauseum." And the part where he says whatever power I have on the matter is interesting, considering that those who disagree with him for not going after Clinton are seizing on just that. Conservative commentator Ann Coulter tweeting, quote, "Did we make him the FBI and DOJ? His job is to pick those guys, not to do their jobs." Breitbart, formerly run by Trump's chief strategist Steve Bannon, ran a headline saying, "Broken promise." And the conservative group Judicial Watch, which sued to get more of Hillary Clinton's State Department emails, said Trump's refusal to investigate Clinton, quote, "would be a betrayal of his promise to the American people to drain the swamp of out-of-control corruption in Washington, D.C. But Rudy Giuliani, who's being considered for a cabinet position and who also said Clinton belonged in jail, is now backing off his position. Watch.
Look, there's a tradition in American politics that after you win an election, you sort of put things behind you. And if that's the decision he reached, that's perfectly consistent with sort of a historical pattern.
And while it might be a political tradition to put things behind you after an election, it would also be highly unusual for a president to request that the FBI close an inquiry or investigation. Megyn.
Unprecedented. Trace, thank you. Here now to give us both sides of this issue, Congressman Sean Duffy and Peter Schweitzer. He's the president of the Government Accountability Institute and author of Clinton Cash. Peter is the untold story of how and why foreign governments and businesses helped make Bill and Hillary rich. We begin tonight with Mr. Schweitzer. Peter, good to see you tonight. So your reaction when you heard President-elect Trump say that?
I think it's deeply disturbing. Look, he shouldn't be talking about this at all. It's not his job. I was on your program earlier this year, Megyn, talking about how inappropriate it would be for President Obama to intervene in an investigation. It is equally inappropriate for a president-elect and later president, Donald Trump, to do the same. If he wants to pardon her at the tail end of an investigation, if the Department of Justice decides that they're not going to prosecute, they are fine to do that. But the FBI is undergoing an investigation investigation now, and the president-elect should not be telling them to halt their investigation.
I mean, the outrage that we would have seen from conservatives and Republicans and Trump supporters if President Obama had come out and said explicitly, we need to move on, and there should be no more investigation, and the Clinton Foundation has done good work, and we really just need to move forward. You know, the Republicans would be hammering him on overstepping his role.
Yeah, that's exactly right. It is overstepping a role. And think about this, Megyn. 75% of the American people believe that the elite in this country don't have to abide by the same laws as the rest of us. Play this through for a second. If Hillary Clinton had won in November, I think it's safe to assume that she would not have been investigated for the Clinton Foundation. She has lost in November, and now it seems that Donald Trump does not want her to be investigated for the Clinton Foundation. That is the definition of a rigged system. Win or lose, she's not going to face any legal investigation. It just does not make sense. And one of the reasons I think Donald Trump won in certain parts of the country is precisely because people felt like the elite in this country are above the law. And by him making these statements, he seems to be implying that he thinks the Clintons should not have to answer or be investigated for what they've done.
That's the thing, is either she's committed a crime or she hasn't. And the FBI is investigating it. And Donald Trump has come out and said, well, he doesn't want to hurt the Clintons. He says he's not taking investigations off the table, but he doesn't want to hurt them. He wants to move on and move forward, which, of course, will be applauded by many Americans as a political matter. But as a legal matter, the question is whether it is appropriate, as Ann Coulter, who is a smart lawyer, she's controversial, she's a smart lawyer, seized upon immediately.
No, you're exactly right. And look, when is the idea of national unity and truth-seeking, when are those two viewed as inconsistent? What I've said all along, and I think what a lot of people agree on, is let's investigate. Let's find out what we can actually discover about what the Clintons did. Maybe it can be prosecuted, maybe it can't. But here's the bottom line. This is not just about the Clintons. We need to find out what happened so we can't allow these sorts of things to happen in the future.
Okay, but last question, Peter, last question. You know, a lot of people, Rush Limbaugh among them, say, we never believed that. We never believed Donald Trump when he said that in the first place. That was just bluster. And now he's just admitting that it was bluster and it was nonsense. And it was, it's not exactly a broken campaign promise so much as a promise that was never really made because his heart wasn't in it.
Well, I can't speak for what's in Donald Trump's head. I can say that my view, and I think of the view of a lot of people in the FBI, 5 field offices investigating the Clinton Foundation, it was not bluster, and it was not about throwing Hillary Clinton in jail. It was about investigating possible criminal activity, and that needs to go forward.
Mm-hmm. Good to see you, Peter. Thanks for being here.
Thanks, Megyn.
Joining me now with more, Congressman Sean Duffy, who is one of President-elect Trump's earliest supporters. Congressman, good to see you. So what do you make of Peter's argument?
First of all, I got to tell you, I love Peter. He's a patriot, and I'm a big fan of all of his work, which allowed Donald Trump to publicly prosecute this case. But I think he's mixing up the argument. Donald Trump was talking about the private server and the emails, and Director Comey did an investigation. Loretta Lynch decided not to prosecute. I think what Donald is saying is that's behind us. Let's move forward. We don't
Based on
necessarily
what?
have
Where
an
do you get
investigation
that?
yet.
Where do you get that he was taking the Clinton Foundation off the table? Because he said that people could argue the Clinton Foundation has done good work, which is a very different message than the one we heard from him a couple months ago.
But I do think in regard to his public statements and his fans chanting "lock him up," that was in regard to the emails and the private server. The investigation hasn't been completed yet with regard to the Clinton Foundation, and I think that should go forward. But Megyn, I think what's important to note is
but it's not about what you think. It's about what President-elect Trump thinks, and he did not make that distinction today. It sounded like either way, he believes Hillary Clinton, as he put it, that she's had enough pain. That's what Kellyanne said on his behalf, and that he doesn't want to hurt her.
Well, I would disagree. Then I do think the investigation should go forward. But can I make another point, Megyn?
Sure.
I think what's important for Donald Trump is if you look back and you blow your political capital prosecuting and going after Hillary Clinton, as opposed to saying, how do I actually make America great again? How do I fight for the forgotten men and women and families and communities who crossed political lines and voted for me, or who haven't voted for 20 years but came out to support my campaign because he was going to fight for policies that were going to make my life better, my family better. They're going to put a chicken in all of our pots. That's what America, I think, wants him to fight for. And if you look back and burn political capital on Hillary, you can't move forward with securing the border or tax reform or health care reform.
I get
and
that.
By the way,
I get that. A lot of Americans out there are sitting listening to you agreeing with that. But that is a very different message from the one Trump sounded when he was running for this office. And for that matter, very different message from the one sounded by yourself at Donald Trump campaign events, including this one on August 16th. Watch.
We have to elect Donald Trump to do that.
We have to elect Donald Trump to lock her up. And now it's like, for the good of the country, we have to move forward. I mean, do you understand how people watch this and they're like, lying politicians who just say anything to get elected. They think we're chumps, that we're going to believe them then, and now we're supposed to believe them again now, even though the two messages appear to be diametrically opposed.
But, Megyn, you have to look and say the lock her up chant in Donald Trump were specifically talking about the email server and the emails themselves and secure information on a private server. Comey came out with his statements after that little rally that we had in Wisconsin, which, by the way, was really fun. And I think that's been put behind us. Do you want to have Donald Trump
Comey came out and reopened the investigation, he reopened it. And then Team Trump made a huge deal out of it, and then he purported to close it, and Team Trump continued to make a huge deal out of it, and said the system was rigged, and disagreed with Comey's decision, and wanted her put in jail.
But you as a lawyer, Megyn, and me as a former prosecutor, do I want Donald Trump to then say, no, I am going to be the FBI head, and I'm going to head the Department of Justice, and I'm going to force them to reopen an investigation that they closed.
The lawyers, who happen some of whom happen to be anchors, actually said, we accept the FBI's decision. They've made it clear. But you guys were the ones saying, lock her up. And now tonight, it's a 180. We're supposed to pretend the magic of videotape does not exist.
Megyn, I actually agreed that, listen, I was going to take Comey at his word because I didn't have all the evidence. I didn't sit inside the FBI. So I publicly was out there saying, whatever Comey decides, I think we have to go with.
Okay, but your candidate did not feel that way, and now he's the president-elect. You see? So, I mean, you understand the frustration of some of Mr. Trump's supporters and the frustration of just reasonable people who see different messages coming at them. I'll give you the last word.
But, Megyn, you want him to fight for the policies that are going to help the economy of middle America that elected him, and you can't do that if you have a political fight with Hillary Clinton. Let's move forward and start making America great, which isn't putting Hillary Clinton in jail right now.
Great to see you, Congressman. Thanks for being here.
You too, Megyn.
So, also tonight, new questions about whether intense media coverage, and it has been intense, of a white nationalist meeting in Washington. The thing had like 285 people, disturbing, but does it justify the amount of wall-to-wall coverage that we have seen of this group and the repeated demands to have Donald Trump denounce this ugly group, which he's done, but they want it done in stronger terms and so on and so forth? We'll have reaction on that from former Intel Committee Chairman Pete Hoekstra and Democratic strategist Robert Zimmerman. Plus, the president-elect goes face-to-face with the New York Times in a meeting that made headlines on waterboarding, peace in the Middle East, and Mr. Trump's relationship with President Obama. Howie Kurtz and Mike Huckabee are next with the news.